I just firmly believe, like, if I do not do this right now, nobody else in my family will. Like, nobody. Not nobody right now, at least. I don't see anybody. Like, so you have to be willing to just be the ones to take the first step. And that's like one of the hardest things to do is to be the first one. Cause like,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you don't have examples of what it looks like.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mind Fluxed podcast, a show for creators and doers who want more and aren't going to let anyone stop them from getting it. Guys, our tools, our episodes, and our guests and our ideas are all tools for you to use on the success journey. And this episode is called Full Plates, Empty Tables, and Silent Servants. And the big idea here is that you have an abundance of talents, gifts, skills you can share with other people. Okay, they are so powerful that other people are going to be compared to share it with you. And you should be sharing on all fronts. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, go ahead and leave a review based on the value you get from this episode. And with that, we'll jump right into it. So, Josh, you brought this topic up, and I know it was like so impactful to you that literally when you just said the title, like I stopped everything and was like, whoa, this is so relevant to us, to our listeners, to the people who listen without even hearing where it came from. So go ahead and like fill everybody in. Where does this concept come from?
Yeah. So when I first heard this concept, it was actually this past Sunday. And I just woke up, and just went to YouTube and just like turned on like a sermon and when I just like listen and just get my mind right, for Easter Sunday or whatever. And when I heard this topic, the pastor, he basically talked about, there's a lot of people out there with full plates, empty tables, and like no servants. And when I heard that, it made a lot of sense when we started to talk about it, because basically what it meant was, a lot of people have, many gifts and abilities. They have a lot of things to offer to the world, but one thing that's hindering them to get them to the point that they want to be is that they're not sharing it with anybody. They're not sharing the abundance of food. They're not, spreading their message. They're kind of selling themselves short when it comes to, their abilities and the things that they're actually able to do. And when I was listening to it, it just made so much sense because, like, especially with what, me and Tristan have going on with Mind Flux, our business, like, honestly, and the whole purpose of Mind Flux, like, the reason we started this podcast is because, like, we've learned and we've been through certain things that we know we have a message to share with others and pretty much spread the wealth. Because, like, what good is having information? What good is having all this abundance of information, knowing all these different things, if you're not going out there to share it with people and spread that and, creating that ripple effect. So that's why, like, this whole topic just really caught my attention, and it really resonated with me. And I'm super excited to talk about this whole thing, because I think it's a message that a lot of people need to hear. And it's a message that, can really impact a lot of people's lives and help them to stay on the path of their own, but also share with others. And like I said, it's like that ripple effect, and it'll make everybody better instead of just like themselves. So yeah.
Yeah. And it was like at that moment when you said what the topic was, right? And everything kind of stopped. Full plates, empty tables, and silent servants. For all the creators, for all the doers, for all the people out there, I think people forget that their plate, their cup is at least half full. I think we all start pushing and pressing and trying to get more and trying to get more and trying to get more and trying to do better. And it seems like everything that we want is so far out that we forget that our cup is at least half full, meaning you're always a chapter ahead and you're always a chapter behind, but you're always at least half full. And it reminded me of an analogy. If you've ever seen the movie Catch Me If You Can, for anybody out there, it's basically about a con artist. And he impersonated a pilot. He impersonated a professor, a doctor, and all these things. And when he was arrested, while impersonating a professor, they asked him, how could you teach these complex materials? How could you teach this class and have people actually learning? And he said it was because all he had to do was be one chapter ahead of the class. So no matter where you're at in your journey, you're at least a chapter ahead of somebody, but you're also at least a chapter behind somebody too. So one thing you have to think about from the beginning when it comes to, your plate and full plates is that it is at least half full all the time. But Josh, why do people think it's empty? Why do people get stuck? Why do people think that they've got nothing to give?
Yeah. I mean, one big thing is that, for one, they're not really mastering or accepting the main like plate, the main thing that they can offer. They're not accepting that and just making it that thing. You know what I mean? They try to do too many things that, they're not good at. They're not focusing on that main thing and just getting good at that. So then that way, people are more willing to sit at their table and get that wealth. So it's like, if I relate it to, me and you, we are getting really good and we're striving to be the best that we can in this personal development space and just like self-improvement, because like that's our message, that's our purpose, that's the thing that we want to be good at, that's the thing that's changed our life to make us, get to where we are and get to where we want to be. So like that's one reason. I think another reason is that, people just lack just belief in themselves. And I think that's like one of the biggest things. And I'll tell anybody that that's like a very, very, very huge thing when it comes to realizing that your cup is at least half full. Like you have to believe that. You have to believe that in yourself in order for anybody to want to follow you. Like people follow those who know where they're going. So like if you don't have that belief in yourself, you can't possibly spread your message and expect other people to take hold of that and believe in you. Because if you don't believe in you, nobody else can believe in you. And that's where it starts.
Exactly. You've got to get yourself and position yourself that you've got an abundance here on this plate, in this cup, right? That half is more than enough. A half is more than enough to share, right? Just think of the bigger plate, right? And I like what, as you said, most people aren't focused on one thing. So they're trying to spin 5 or 6 plates on their fingers. They're trying to get this one and this one and this one and this one, and they're all coming crashing down. But spinning one plate is impressive enough, right? So when that happens and you try to spin all these things, you're trying to create this business, you're trying to help these people, and you're trying to work this job, and you're trying to do all these different things, and you're keeping busy, we start to fail more often than we feel like we win. Yes, you're still learning. Yes, you're still experiencing. Yes, you're still getting probably valuable relationships because you're in a lot of places, but you start to like excruciate your failures because they're so consistent, and then just skip over your wins. And you and I used to do this a lot. Like in 2018, we locked ourselves in our office. No barbecues, no summer, no sunlight. I mean, I'm already white and pasty, but my God, I look like a ghost because we had convinced ourselves that was like the only way, and we excruciated over every single loss, and we weren't posting on social media, and we weren't sharing our message because we felt like we had nothing to give and we had to earn it, and it ended up burning us out on our business. It ended up burning us out and kind of making us forget about our mission. It kind of made us forget about the things that we were supposed to be doing, the things that we were called to do. You know what I mean? And on top of that, it made us feel unqualified, right? Like a lot of people, you said the belief. Well, it's either the belief in yourself or the belief in the training or the system. A lot of people feel like they are not qualified to serve others. Like they can't help others. Oh, I can't help people with their fitness until I have the degree. Well, that might be legally true, but if you're doing workouts and you just share them, that might help somebody, right? If you're taking care of yourself. Oh, I can't mentor somebody because I've never been mentored. Well, if you're reading a book, you can share the things that are coming from that book. You don't have to have a piece of paper that says you're qualified or $1 million that says you're qualified. I mean, when we started this show, one of the biggest things that you even got a message from an old friend. What qualifies you to do this?
Yeah.
We're doing more than everybody else. That's the first step. I'm always a chapter ahead. but I know I'm always a chapter behind. So I think that's, to me, why so many people don't see their plate being full or their cup being full. What would you say? Like, do you have any final thoughts on what that is?
Yeah. So I kind of want to feed off of that last little part you said, because I think it super, like really relates. So like, I think I mentioned it before in the episode. Like I had a friend, like literally, and it was like literally in person, face to face, and it just blew my mind that he was like, and this is during the time, like, because since I've started, this journey, like I really haven't gave a F like what anybody has to say or thought about like what we're doing, because I just know where we're going. Like outside sources just do not matter at all. I don't even care about like family things. So I definitely wouldn't care what like friends think. So it's like I had this person basically say like what, like Tristan said, what qualifies you to talk like this, to spread this message? And what did qualify me is just like staying consistent and believing in it, not backing away from my thoughts and my beliefs and the message that I want to spread because I believe in those things. And that's like one big thing. A lot of people, they think they think that they think their cup is half empty, and that stops them. And when you think like that, you care about what other people have to say. Like, you have to be willing to just like, be that messenger for your message and like go after what it is you want, no matter the thoughts. And the crazy thing is, like, when I had that conversation with this person, they were just literally like, they said that, but then they was like, oh, I see it now. And now this person always hits me up asking questions and stuff like that. It's just like funny how those things turn around. Like when you have these ideas, when you have your certain beliefs, the people you care about or the people you grew up with, they're not going to believe it at first. But as long as you keep believing that your cup is half full and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, eventually they will follow. Like eventually they will. It may take a year, 2 years, 5, 10. But as long as you stay consistent, as long as you believe in what you have to say for a long period of time, those people will come eventually once they wake up, once they, start being independent thinkers for themselves, which then, takes me into this next point of like, you have to realize that you have the cure. When it comes to whatever it is you're going through, you have to realize that you have the cure and what you're doing is right. And it will genuinely help people, whatever that may be, whether it is the business or your ideas or your beliefs, whatever it is, like you have the cure. And one thing when I was listening to, this pastor speak on Sunday, he was like, if you had the cure for coronavirus right now, right, for COVID-19, you will be considered a terrorist if you do not go and share this and help people, because there's people literally dying. There's people literally out here dying from this disease. And so if you just think about it with what you're going through, whether it is you offer a service or you have this organization helping underprivileged children, like you have to be willing to go out there and share your message because it will genuinely help people. And if you don't go and do it, you're really doing a disservice to yourself, not only yourself, but others out there. Like you have to be willing to just go out there and help people and help people and help people no matter what. And you have to think about it as like you have the cure. You have that vaccination. You have the cure to whatever it is it may be. And it's genuinely going to help people.
Exactly. Because if it cured you, if what's on your plate, if what's in your cup, if what's at least half full has helped you, what makes you think that out of 7 billion people on earth that it can't help another person? Right. And I've seen some people, for those listening to our podcast, we're also starting to stream these live, and I've seen some people bounce in and out, and I can think of the mission that they're on, and I've watched them unfold it and sell themselves on their mission even more, whether it be videography or it be women in business or it just be being, that positive light for people, consistently positive. Right. And I think what you said, Josh, if you want it long enough, the people will come, right? The people will eventually see it, because he said, I see it now. It's, again, that quote. It's not who wants it the most. It's who wants it the longest. It's not who can walk up to the buffet one time and overload their plate to where stuff is falling off of it as they're walking to the table. It's the person who can consistently fill their plate for themselves and for others on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, to constantly be giving and receiving, to constantly be nourishing. And that takes us to the next point, is your table. Okay, so we've talked about your plate. That's your unique skill, your unique talent, your unique pursuit the thing that you are after. Let's talk about your table, the people around you, the positioning around you, the environment that you're in, the chairs that are around it. Okay. The things that make up your table are the things that bring the people together. The food is one thing. That's one piece of the puzzle, but you got to have a place for people to sit. You've got to have a place for people around you. So Josh, what is the first thing that you consider, or the first thing you think of when you think of the table?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is that, as I said before, like what good is what good is knowing what you know and doing what you do, like if you're just not sharing it with anybody. And that's like a huge thing. Like what good is like having all of this information, all of these things that can genuinely change your life. Like what good is that if you don't have anybody to share it with? Like what good is that to just be at the top yourself? Like what good is it to not like share it with your close family members, or even if they don't listen, like just keep sharing it with them until they do finally join you, or your friends, or just building this community of people. Like, for Flux, for everything that we have going on, like we want people to share this with. This isn't about me and Tristan. Like everything that we do is to basically help other people and bring this community and lift other people up. Like we want to share the wealth, because like when you have a community of people that are locked together and moving forward together, that's powerful. Like one person does not compare to 10, 20, hundreds of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that's like one big thing. Like you have to want to like have this information, but also be able to share with others and collaborate and really grow your ideas. Cause like more is better than none.
Exactly. And if you keep pressing and you don't try to look at the table, look at the environment, look at how you can welcome others, then you're going to attract the hyenas and the vultures, the people who are going to come pick and pry and get what they can while they can and take off again, right? That is a thing in the wild. Those animals do exist and they have their place. Well, there are people just like that on Earth too. They have their place, and that is going to be a piece of it if that's the environment or the table that you permit people to come and go to. What you want to do is you want to have the big, long dinner table, right? You want to create more of like a lion pack, right? We talked about chapters. You're being at least a chapter ahead or chapter behind. If they say you're the sum of your 5 friends, then you need 2 people who are no more than a chapter behind you so you can help them, or at the same chapter. And you need at least 3 people who are at least a chapter ahead of you so they can pull you forward, right? So you got to look at who you're dining with. You got to make sure that that table can fit 6, you plus 5, and you got to at least be tending to that flock. But again, a lot of people, whether it be because the belief in their mission, in their plate, in their cup, maybe they do have a lot of belief, but their plate or their table is still empty. No matter how hard they try, it feels like they're doing the right things, they're saying the right things, they're following the blueprint, and their table is still empty. And the first thing I want to say about that before I pass it back to you is there is an abundance of people to come and go, to come and sit at this table, but either you don't see it or they see that you don't see it. Because people do not see you as they see you, they see you as you see yourself. So when it comes to filling the seats at this table, that's how people are going to see it, how you see it. So why do you think a lot of people, no matter how confident they are, no matter how much they believe in their gift, their plate, their cup, why is their table empty?
Yeah, I think one big thing is like when it comes to this, like when it comes to like sharing your message, sharing whatever it is, sharing your purpose, like you just have to be willing, you have to do it willingly and not see it as an obligation. Because like once you see it as that obligation, then there's resistance there. Like there's instantly resistance and doing and sharing your purpose and trying to bring people to your table. Like you have to be willing to do it willingly no matter what, like, and expect nothing in return. Like expect nothing in return for what you're doing. You're just doing it just because you know it's the right thing, not because you have to. And I think that's like one big thing. Like once people like shift their perspective on that and stop looking at it as a drag, or stop looking at it as something that they have to do instead of want to do, like, that's when things are going to change for people.
It's a good point.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's like when you say have to do, it makes me think of when people make the bad decision about their food because they have to eat and they have to eat now, so they run and grab fast food. They're treating their relationships like a grab and go. They're treating their table like a grab and go. They're treating themselves like a grab and go. And so instead of meeting people where they're at and guiding them, right, the ingredients or the things that they need to provide at the table, they're rushing for a quick fix because they look at where they lack. They look at where they messed up. They looked at where they didn't prepare, and now they've got to go rush. And they've got to go try to feed the people at the table. A lot of people do this, and there are places where that's acceptable, and there are most places where it's not. A lot of people are treating the relationships, like you said, like an obligation. Oh, we've got to get this now. But because they didn't get it, it's a grab and go. They're rushing and rushing and rushing and rushing, and they're not prepared. But if you feed them fast food, if you feed them fat food, that's what they will become. If your table, your group around them, if you are the leader of your family, if you are the leader, and our listeners are, a lot of our listeners are the leaders of their groups, of their micro communities, of the industry that they work in. If you are feeding your followers fast food, if you're feeding them fat food, that's what they will become. So you're either going to end up with fat hyenas and vultures or fat lions, right? You can't expect that. You can't create that environment. So when it comes to this table, you've got to put your belief and your best focus and your best effort to make sure even the presentation is better for the people who come and go. That stuff matters. If you've got your belief taken care of, you've got your own plate, your own cup, however you analogize it, I think that's a word, in your own head, then now you got to look at the table, because that's going to be what slows you down. I think it was Aisha or Shai, one of the two, said it on our Partnership Secrets episode. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You need this table. You need it. And you need the people around you, because that's what's going to propel you and move you forward. Any last thoughts about the table?
I think one thing is, like, especially when you're sharing your message with people, when you're sharing the business, when you're sharing your ideas, you have to be willing to just, like, meet them like where they're at. So, like, you can't force a bunch of stuff down people's throat and expect them to right away join you. Like, you just have to meet them where they're at. And that goes back to, say, that friend that I was talking about who didn't see it, or say it's a family member who just has so much potential, and they want more, and they can do better, but they're just not there yet. To just, like, they just mentally cannot consume all the information that you've learned over the past years, and they can't instantly get all the experiences you had all at once. Like, you have to be willing to just, like, drop certain nuggets just here and there. So, like, hey, I believe in you. Even if it's just like, hey, I believe in you, here and there, until like
a kid. You wouldn't put a kid on a Harley or even a bike. You give them a tricycle. You give them a trike.
Exactly. It's just like, and I'm speaking from experience with this. Like, there's plenty of friends that I had, or even family members right now, who are getting better. And in my mind, I'm like, man, I know you could do way better, but it's like, you can't force anybody to want to sit at the table and be there with you. Like, but you also can't judge them for that, because, like, you have to realize they have their own experiences. They're going through their own things. They weren't exposed to what you were exposed to. And this goes back to the thing of, like, just doing it willingly and not making it seem like you have to do it. Because, like, when you do it willingly and willingly help people who can be great, and willingly help people who can do better, and just willingly share that information, eventually they will catch on, and they'll slowly start to join you to where you're going. They'll eventually see what you see. Like, you can't be mad at somebody for not seeing what you see. Like, and I think about it too. It's like, even like with business, even like, say, like, when I did network marketing, like 4 or 5 years ago, however long that was, like, there will be people who get mad when people don't join their business and stuff like that, and, like, call them certain names or whatnot, and be like, oh, you broke, that's what you gonna still do this. Like, you can't do that because like they didn't get your experience. They're going through their own problems. Like, the only thing that you can do is just like willingly share information and help.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't force an epiphany. You can't force that kind of change. You know, with mind flux, flux means to change. So what we're talking about here is changing the mind. And we're hoping that with every episode, you get at least one nugget, at least one tool, at least one concept, at least one idea that then pushes you a little forward, because we can't force you to see exactly what we see. We can't. We can't get you to look at the past 6 years of our lives and see the abundance and the things that have changed. But what we can do is keep moving forward and keep showing up. And in the quote that the pastor said, and I went and listened to this, and a quote that you even said on the recording, is, if I don't go, they won't know. And that speaks for itself in volumes when it comes to closing out this concept of the table. We've talked about the plate, the cup, you know, your talents, your gifts. We've talked about the table and the people around, or the environment that you are permitting around you. But the one sentence that can summarize how you expect people to show up and how you should be expected to show up at a table is, if I don't go, they won't know. It's all for one. It's one for all. It's helping others by being what those others are looking for. Not saying, oh, I didn't get this from you, so I'm not going to help you with this. That's not how it works. It's, if I don't go, they won't know. You've got to keep moving forward. You've got to keep replacing that food at the table with a little bit better ingredients. You've got to keep filling the cups. You've got to keep taking the tongs and serving the plates. And on top of that, you've got to do the same thing at other tables and be that humble servant at the table. This thing has got to be greater than you. So if you don't go, they won't know. That quote in itself literally summarized two of those topics. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And it's like, you know, kind of just like going into these just like next steps, or like what you need to do. And I just love that quote. If you don't go, they won't know. Like, and I truly believe that. Like, just to feed off that real quick, like, I just firmly believe, like, if I do not do this right now, nobody else in my family will. Like, nobody. Not nobody right now, at least. I don't see anybody. Like, so you have to be willing to just be the ones to take the first step. And that's like one of the hardest things to do, is to be the first one. Because like, especially when you don't have examples of what it looks like. You don't have examples of like what it is that you need to do. Like, you just have to be willing to go for it. And, you know, if you don't do it, if not you, then who? It's this quote, it goes, if not me, then who? Or if not you, then who? If not now,
Then
I
when?
can't remember. Then when?
Yeah. I
Like,
don't even know the last half either.
Like, it's a great quote. You got a book there?
Yeah, I snatched a book off my shelf because this is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, PhD, right? So he's got a PhD in psychology. And there is a chapter in this book specifically on being the first to take action. And it tells a very disruptive story. Oh, there was apartments overlooking a park in New York, and a woman was stabbed to death in that park. Everyone's windows were open. It was a summer day, and they could hear her yelling, but nobody called the ambulance or police because they assumed the other people across the lot, the other people looking down on this woman, were all calling. No one called. We're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 people witnessing this act, but assuming that everyone else will call. When you say that if you don't go, they won't know, it's no disrespect to your family. I believe it too. I wouldn't disrespect my family in saying that, but it's the truth. I can't put my trust in them that they're going to take us and this legacy and this mission to the next level. I just can't, because I can't get in their head. There's one private place in the entire world. It's between your ears, and it's in your mind. That's it. That's the only space you truly have to yourself. Everyone else can see and watch and observe what you do, what you say, how you are. And I can't assume that their mind is going to get them to take action. So that book, I just reminded me of it when you said it, that is a kind of a sad story. It's a gross story, but nobody took action in calling the police and saving this woman because everybody assumed someone else would do it. You can't do that. You have to go because they won't know. And that's an exact example right there that could have saved somebody's life years and years ago. It's a true story. And that takes us to our last part. We've talked about full plates. We've talked about the table. Now we got to talk about our silent servants. We've got to think about the action steps that you can do right now to actually put this into practice and to change in reverse, right? I think the cool thing about our episodes is they always kind of come and then fold back on themselves. And we can go like right back up in reverse. So we're going to talk about fixing the table and the actions to do that through these silent servants. And we're also going to talk about how that will, relate to the plate. So Josh, what would be the first thing that you would say in observing the silent servants? What does that even mean?
Yeah, so the silent servants they're basically the people who know they have something, but just not sharing. Like they're just not sharing the message. Like something's holding them back. It's like it goes to that first point of like, instead of thinking they have the glass that's half full, they think it's half empty. They think they don't have anything to offer, which brings me into like one of the most important things. And I think this in anything, because if you don't have this one thing, there's no way that you're going to move forward, and there's no way that people are going to want to follow you, because people can just read. Like I said, people follow those who know where they're going. So like if you have a message and you have in your mind, if you have a direct path and you're taking actions to get there, people will notice that and they will follow. So like the biggest thing is like, the number one thing is like, for you to not be a silent servant is to have the belief. Like have the belief in yourself and what you say and the way you think and the way you feel and the way you do things. Even if you may lack confidence, you have to at least act as if you have that belief, because eventually once you tell yourself something enough times, you'll start to believe it.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly. And the silent servants are also the people that are at your table, and you might be a silent servant at someone else's table, eating and drinking the food, maybe silently complaining about it, maybe grouping up with the other people from the table and talking about the presentation or talking about the meal and expecting things to change. A silent servant is somebody who's not contributing to the cause, no matter what that is. So the second thing, other than the belief, right? The first thing is the belief in the tables that you're at. If you don't believe in those tables, then here's the second thing. Excuse my language, get the fuck up and move. Excuse yourself from the table. Do not overstay your welcome. If you are infiltrated yourself into groups that you're not contributing to, remove themselves, because you need to expect the same thing from your table, from your groups, the people who aren't sharing your message, who aren't at least consuming the message, who aren't at least helping other people in the same way. You got to expect them to come on or go on, right? You can't expect to create this big tribe, this big following, and be half in and half out. Yes, your table is at least half empty, half full. It can always get better. It could always be worse. But if you're staying at those other tables as a silent servant, you are causing the problems in the organization. If you're, again, talking behind the back of the service, if you're, again, not contributing to how you can help, and instead you're expecting things to change, you've got to get out. So the first thing is you got to believe in where you're at. And if you don't believe in where you're at, like Josh said, if you don't believe in where you're going, you got to make a change. And that first change that you can be is to excuse yourself. We give you that permission. Excuse yourself from the tables you don't really want to be at. It's hard to face, but it's true.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like a lot of people will like leave your table. A lot of people will, and it also goes back to that thing. Like you can't control that. Like, and you also, on the flip side, you still have to be willing to still just if they want to come back, they're more than welcome. Like it's not like you're going to like you're completely rejecting people. It goes back to that thing. People have their own experiences and they're going through their own journey. But as long as you willingly still are out there to share and like share your message and share what you believe in, the people will eventually, they'll find their way back if that's the right environment for them. Like they'll find their way back. Like for example, like if I had, say, like a family member who, or even a friend who I've invested my time in, and it's happened to us plenty of times. We've invested our time into people. We've invested our intellectual thoughts into people, shared our ideas with people, and they listen, but then they fade away and they go back, and then they might come back, and then we'll still willingly share to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
and they might fade away, but then they might come back. And then maybe that last time they fade away and come back, maybe that might be the time that they get it. And then they're willing to be the messenger as well of whatever it is that you share with them.
Exactly. And that's why I say excuse yourself from the table. Think of it like dinner. That doesn't mean you'll never eat a meal again. It just means that right now you can't serve the group and the group can't serve you, and that's okay. Right? They said with some intensity because you've got to look at where you're really at. And another thing that you can do if you want to make an improvement is I like to think of it like bring in a black sheep to the table. If you got your 5 friends or 6 friends, pull up an extra chair and bring somebody the no shirt, no service, no problem rule. Because what happens in all these social groups, what happens is it becomes like miniature cults, right? And you see it in religion, like in different churches, right? You might have 2 churches that believe in the same thing, but they don't believe in each other, right? Or you might have high school groups or whatever, and you get little cliques and little groups, and nobody's there with open arms, like you just said, willing to let people come and go. So to really evaluate the members of your group and to really evaluate your table, to hear the silent servants finally speak up, bring in new people. You can't be scared to bring in people that are a little bit different, people who don't have the no shirt, no service. You have to be fully open arms. The way they said it in the sermon that you had watched is like, you can't expect other people to act a certain way at your table once they're there. You got to get them there. And if they've never eaten what you've had to offer, you can't expect them to react in a certain way. They're not conditioned. They're not different. Think of it like if you brought a homeless person off the street who hasn't eaten in a week and you give them food, of course they're going to be inhaling it, right? They're not going to use their napkin or their fork. They might eat with their hands. Who cares? But you got to get them there. And then when we were talking about excusing yourself, I'm talking about the presence at the table, or not how you eat the food. When I'm talking about bringing in a black sheep, I'm talking about letting anybody in and out, not setting rules on who is allowed to consume your craft. I think that that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think so too. And you just, and I guess my last point for that is like, you just have to like consistently do it. Like you have the belief, like you're bringing people in, you're letting people excuse themselves and letting more people come in, and you're willingly doing it. But I think the biggest thing is like, you just have to consistently do it and consistently believe, because I think that's when your table like truly grows. And we've seen that in our lives. Like the longer we do something, the more we do something, the more people believe in what we're doing, the more people that want to follow us and hear what we have to say. Because like if you only do things sometimes and not all the time, you can't possibly grow your community. You can't possibly grow your business. You can't possibly expect your family to believe what you're saying because you're not staying consistent and staying true to what you said you were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's huge.
Exactly. And the last thing that I'll say about this topic too, before we go into our questions, is that, you said the belief, and I'm going to wrap up with that again as well. You've got to believe this is the best place for them to be seated. This is the best place you can be because I'm going to serve you to the best of my ability. That's how we feel about our clients. That's how we feel about our listeners. When people are with us, we are going to show up. We're going to give you the best that we possibly can. We can't make you sit. We can't make you stay, but we will invite you. And if you show up to our full plates, to our no longer empty tables, we are going to serve you. And there's some quotes in there. Nipsey Hussle, an artist we both love, he said, "Never taught how to fish, I just lead to the lake." Imagine not just teaching people how to fish, not just the tactics. Imagine being a lake, an empty, bottomless reservoir that fills every time it rains on other people and continues to feed with the fish and the other things in this. Imagine being that great of a resource instead of just the fisherman. Imagine that. Can you conceptualize how big your dream can get now? Not just teaching others how to fish, not just inviting them to the table, but now being the one that prepares the food, right? And the last thing is a story. I went to ClickFunnels Funnel Hacking Live in 2018. It was a life-changing experience. We should just release a story on what that meant to us and our business and at the time and everything we were going through. But the first night that I got there, I was a day late. My car broke down on the way there. You know, all these horror stories of the situation that we were in. They do a meetup at the end of the night of the first night called the Round Table. And they bring in all these millionaires who have used the ClickFunnels software that we use in our marketing agency. And they've made millions in different businesses, maybe e-commerce, maybe real estate, maybe or Airbnb, maybe they're an influencer, maybe they have a show like us, but they've all made $1 million with the software. And they sit at their round table and you can go and ask them any question. And it's an hours long event. And it wasn't the people with the tactics that had the most people. It was the people who had the mission, the influence, who were constantly creating content every day, not the people who are sitting on a beach making $10s, $20s, $30,000 days. There are people with more money, but with less people at their table. The people who had the biggest crowds were the people who have a decent social media following and they show up every single day and they just serve their audience. Those were the people who, when they closed the roundtable event, people were staying late and security had to get them to leave because they had been sharing their message so long, so consistently that people were dying to get their information, to ask them just one question. How can you become that kind of resource for your people? How can you become that abundant? And it comes from that belief. They believe in their mission so much that they just share it every single day. They show up with their plate half full or half empty, and they fill their table every single day. And they had the biggest influence. How can you do the same? That's the last thing I'd say about it.
Yep. And I think that's completely true, which, like, you just got to believe. And, you know, which will take us into, I guess, our next thing is getting some questions.
Yeah, getting some questions answered. So, guys, we're now streaming. If you're listening on or watching on YouTube or listening on iTunes, Spotify, we are now streaming our episodes live when we record on Instagram, and you can ask questions as we go through the episode. Pop in, ask your questions, pop out, and you can see some of those get answered on the end of the episode. To find that, you visit us at MindFluxed, MindFluxed. And this episode is full plates, empty tables, and silent servants. You'll see our next episodes on there, and we'll start to kind of do a countdown for those lives so you can get your questions answered. Josh, have you scrolled through any of the questions so we can get some? Because I think I've got one that I think we can answer.
Oh, shit.
Somebody said, it was actually Chino, who we've had on an episode. She said, what are your thoughts on people getting stuck being a student and never mastering anything? Feeling like their plate isn't full. They're feeling like they're still preparing their meal. That's the way I like to think of it.
You go first answering that. What do you think?
So the question is, what are your thoughts on people getting stuck being a student and never mastering anything, aka feeling like their plate isn't full? Again, guys, that ties us into what we said in this episode. You're always a chapter ahead or a chapter behind another student in the class. So the people that you're a chapter ahead of, you can help pull up. You can help bring up. You can help bring forward. You can help tutor. You can help push forward. You can help go over the homework. You're a chapter ahead. You've already done it. Okay, so if you feel like you're stuck learning and not taking action, you need to start cultivating that group of people who are learning the same things as you, the people in class, because now you're going to be very crystal clear with who is ahead and who's behind, who you need to learn from, and who you need to help, so that way the entire class moves forward. And I hope that's an answer. Chino asked that question. Bless her soul and her hoops. She asked that question. So I think if anybody's stuck feeling like a student, which I've done, that's how I've gotten over it. It's just find the people in the same class. whatever life thing that's in.
Yeah. And I would say too, just like become very clear on like what it is you're learning in terms of like that being that student, and making sure to create action plans. So like having that homework to do. So like learning what you need to do, now execute on that homework, whether it is whatever that may be for you. Like create a checklist for that homework, create that lesson plan, like, and just do it. Because I think one big thing when people get caught being a student, like it feels good to learn a lot of stuff. It feels good to know a lot of stuff. But unless you're like putting those things into action and actually applying what you learn, it's no good. You're just like the next person who knows a lot of things.
Oof. You're just the next person who knows a lot of things. That's like a slap in the body. I got another question here. How do you make sure your plate is full without always wanting more due to the knowledge that you're always gaining, making you hungrier? So basically, when you become aware that there's more, just like us, like we were saying, when you know that this plate's nowhere near what it's going to be, my cup is nowhere near what it's going to be, I see myself making tens of millions of dollars, and now I'm not even making $10,000. How do you look at that and still see yourself in a place of abundance? How do you still see yourself as a gift? How do you still see yourself ready to serve and to help others and give what you've got? Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I would say it's just honestly like you just have to be willing to just like be disciplined and focus on what the task at hand. It's like there's many times, honestly, throughout the day, I have so many things going through my mind of like, man, I could also try to do this. I could try to do this. And then next thing you know, you got 15 things that you're trying to do in a matter of 24 hours. Mm-hmm. That shit's impossible. Mm-hmm. Like there's no way, especially if you don't have a team to be able to like delegate and execute to like make that happen, which will cost you some money. Like you just have to be willing to like, yes, these things are out here, but just get this thing out the way and then go to the next, and then go to the next, and then go to the next, and then go to the next. Like exactly. All these things aren't going nowhere. Like they're not going nowhere. They're all going to be here. You're not missing out on anything. As much as you feel FOMO, trust me, just stay calm, because like it's going to be there.
Exactly. And what I would say is two things. One is it reminds me of Shai and Aisha's episode. Staring at others' plates makes your food cold. Same for yourself. You can't look at next week's meal. You got to eat what's in front of you. How do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. How do you put a puzzle together? One piece at a time. You can't sit there, chew off in the future and not focus on the present. That is going to ruin the food that's right there, ruin the presentation. You've got to see what's in front of you and keep, recycling. And the second thing I'd say about that is a quote we both heard from Bob, and I'm not sure where he got it, but he said, there's only two things wrong with people, and it's, lack of attention and poverty of imagination. The first one being lack of attention, other words, focus. Imagination is great. If you have already unlocked your mind, you are already an independent thinker, you're already moving forward, you already see yourself $10 million, you see yourself millions of followers, you see yourself helping people with jobs or your organization. That's great. You've got the imagination part, but it is second to focus. It is second to the lack of attention. You've still got to put focus into today. You've still got to put focus into the present to make that happen. So that's how I would say, to make sure that you see your plate as full now, and you're always going to want more. That's natural. And always wanting that knowledge and gaining and making you hungrier. You've got to eat what's in front of you. Of course, you're going to starve to death if you're looking at next week. You've got to eat the plate in front of you. That's how I'd answer that. And those are two solid questions that I've answered to wrap up this episode.
Yep, I think so too. Shout out to Chino.
Shout out to Chino. Awesome, guys. Well, again, this is episode 24, full plates, empty tables, and silent servants. If you have a question, tune into one of our Instagram lives as we stream these episodes and drop them there, or just DM us at MindFlux. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. And if you're listening on iTunes, based on the value you got from this episode, just leave a review. Just quote us and put it in the review and how it helped you. That's it. Quote the quote that we used from somebody else and put it in the review. Those reviews are what's going to help us rank. And we want to be the number one, not number two, not top five, the number one podcast for entrepreneurship, for creators, for doers, and for people in this space who want more, who want better, and aren't going to let anyone stop them from getting it. Josh, you got anything else before we head into next week?
Nope.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Peace.